It was a Sunday evening when Brianna came back from her so-called girls' weekend in Atlanta. She pushed through the front door with a breezy, "Hey babe," dropped her rose-gold suitcase by the wall like it was any other Sunday and made a beeline for the shower. She didn't wait for a kiss, didn't even look back to see if I was watching. Just disappeared down the hallway with a towel slung over her shoulder, leaving behind a faint trail of citrus perfume and something else, something I couldn't name yet. I remember staring at the closed bathroom door, listening to the distant thunder of the water kicking on. It sounded louder than usual. Or maybe the house was just quieter than it used to be. The kind of quiet that didn't feel peaceful, it felt loaded, like a silence between G** and SH**TS. I didn't go into her suitcase, didn't check her texts or social media, not yet. That's not how this started. Instead, I picked up my own laptop from the coffee table just to check my inbox and clear out the weekend clutter. That's when I saw it, an email from an address I didn't recognize. No name, no subject line. Just a blank message with a single attachment, img_5427.jpg. I should have deleted it, but my thumb hovered over the trackpad. I clicked. At first, I didn't register what I was looking at. It was a rooftop, somewhere sunny, modern, probably a hotel based on the layout. And then I saw her. Brianna. She was wearing the deep blue swimsuit she claimed she bought on clearance for the spa. Sitting on a lounge chair, sunglasses perched on her nose, hair pulled back into that effortless bun she always did when she didn't want to look like she was trying. But she wasn't alone. The man sitting next to her looked like he belonged in a catalog, white shirt unbuttoned halfway, lean build, a practiced smile. He had one arm draped behind her shoulders and the other hand resting gently in *mately on her thigh. Not her knee. Not the space beside her. Her thigh. She was leaning in toward him, her body turned, her hand on his chest like they were frozen in mid-laugh. She wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking at him. And she was smiling. The room around me disappeared. My ears were ringing. I didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even breathe for a few seconds. My first instinct wasn't even anger, it was confusion. Like my brain refused to let the image mean what it obviously meant. It felt like being punched without warning. One moment, you're fine. The next, your chest is tight and your thoughts are scrambled and the ground underneath you doesn't feel stable anymore. I heard the water shut off. Still staring at the screen, I didn't know what to do. Ask her? Confront her? Pretend I never saw it? She walked into the living room wearing a towel, steam trailing behind her. Her skin was flushed from the heat, her hair wet and dripping down her back. She froze the second she saw the laptop in my lap, her expression unreadable. Her eyes flicked to the screen and then to my face. Calm. Measured. Like she was expecting this. I didn't know you were using my laptop, she said, almost offhand. I didn't answer. I was still looking at her, trying to find something, regret, shame, fear. Anything. She crossed her arms casually and tilted her head. That photo, it's from the pool deck at the hotel. One of the girls took it. That guy's married, actually. He's a friend of Tasha's husband. We were all just hanging out. It's not what it looks like. The explanation came too quickly. Too clean. Like a line she had practiced. Her voice was soft, controlled, like she was calming a child who had seen a shadow in the closet. She didn't rush. She didn't over-explain. She offered just enough detail to sound plausible, just enough emotion to seem sincere, but not so much it looked like she had anything to feel guilty about. I nodded, said nothing. Not because I believed her, but because something inside me had started to change. A kind of stillness. Like the moment before a storm hits when the air gets heavy and the birds stop singing. We didn't talk about the photo after that. She went back to her routine like nothing happened. Ordered Thai for dinner, watched a rom-com in bed, asked me to rub her shoulders while she scrolled through Instagram. I played along. I didn't want to start a fight without facts. But the facts were already there, weren't they? She didn't bring it up again. Didn't ask how I got the photo. Didn't question who sent it. She didn't deny it either. Just redirected. Minimized. Controlled the narrative like she always did. And me? I smiled. I nodded. I said okay. But inside something shifted. Something subtle but irreversible. The kind of shift you don't notice until the foundation's already cracked. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there beside her, eyes open, watching the ceiling fan spin in slow, hypnotic circles. Her breathing was steady, relaxed, like nothing had happened. I thought about how many times I had trusted her without thinking. How many explanations I had accepted. How many late nights, solo trips, random smiles at her phone I had chalked up to nothing. Now, everything felt like a clue I had missed. I glanced over at her, sleeping peacefully. Same woman I'd been with for 4 years. Same soft curve of her shoulder, same sleepy sighs. But I didn't recognize her anymore. In the dim light of our bedroom, I started to realize I wasn't just suspicious. I was starting to believe. The next morning, I got up before Brianna. Her phone was on the nightstand, face down like always. I didn't touch it. Didn't need to. What I needed wasn't more pictures or text messages. It was answers, and they weren't in her device. They were in the spaces between our conversations. In the way she looked at me, or more accurately, the way she didn't. She came down around 9, robe tied loose, hair pulled into a messy bun. She poured herself coffee and kissed me on the cheek, casual as ever. "Thanks for being chill last night," she said. "Yeah," I replied, forcing a smile. Of course. She didn't know it yet, but I had already started the process of mentally stepping back. I wasn't playing detective anymore. I wasn't looking to catch her. I was studying her, trying to understand how long I'd been looking at a version of her that wasn't real. That afternoon, she left for a beauty appointment. "Might get my hair lightened a little," she said, grabbing her oversized tote. "Nothing drastic, just something fresh for the season." "Looks good either way," I said, but my voice sounded mechanical. Once she was gone, I grabbed my keys and drove. Not anywhere in particular at first, just needed space. But after a few miles, I pulled into a park near the old train yard. I parked the truck beneath the shadow of an oak and just sat there, the engine ticking as it cooled. And then I started going backward. I let my mind retrace every odd detail I'd ignored. The things that seemed like nothing at the time, but now stood out like bright warning signs I'd willfully walked past. Started about 6 months ago. Brianna had blocked me from one of her Instagram accounts. Said it was a mistake, that she didn't even know how it happened. At the time, I believed her, or wanted to. It didn't seem worth the argument. Around that same time, she started setting her phone down screen first. Always. At first, it was just during meals. Then it was all the time. Calls she'd answer in another room. Texts she'd smile at quietly, like little secrets living in her pocket. Once, she laughed out loud at a message, and I asked, "What's funny?" She shrugged. "Just a dumb meme Tasha sent." She never showed me the meme. Another time, I walked into the bathroom while she was getting ready. Her phone was propped up on the counter, and she locked the screen the second she saw me. Like it was instinct. I remembered the night we were supposed to have dinner at her favorite sushi place. She was 40 minutes late. Said traffic was a nightmare. But she wasn't frazzled when she arrived. She was glowing. Different perfume, fresh lipstick, a dress I hadn't seen before. "I just felt like dressing up," she said with a wink. She never used to wear perfume for traffic. And then there were the tickets. 2 months ago, I found a pair of theater tickets in her coat pocket while grabbing a lint roller. I smiled at first, thinking she had planned a surprise date. But when I asked, she said she had gone alone, that it was a show I wouldn't have enjoyed. "One of those weird modern plays," she said. "You'd have hated it." I wanted to believe that. I really did. But now I saw it for what it probably was. A lazy excuse. She hadn't even tried that hard to sell it. The pattern was there. It had been there all along. All the sudden interest in solo outings, the late returns home, the renewed gym membership that somehow didn't translate to any actual changes in routine or schedule. She was out, but she never had any stories, any photos, any real people mentioned. It was like her life had a whole new branch, and I wasn't allowed to see it. I sat in the truck, hands on the wheel, heart slow and heavy. I thought about how many times I'd told myself to stop being paranoid. How often I'd heard that voice in my head whisper, "It's nothing. You're just tired. She loves you. Don't be the jealous guy." But I wasn't jealous. I was being left behind. And now, with that rooftop photo still etched into my mind, every crack in the wall looked like part of a map. And the map led to one conclusion. I hadn't been paranoid. I'd been deceived. She came home a little after 5. Hair trimmed, a few subtle highlights. She smiled and spun once in the kitchen. "You like it?" "Yeah," I said. "Looks good." She beamed and went to pour herself a glass of wine. We sat on the back patio and watched the sun dip behind the tree line. She talked about her stylist, about how the salon playlist was fire, about some reality show she wanted to start. I nodded. I asked questions. I smiled at the right times. But I wasn't really there anymore. I was still in the truck, surrounded by puzzle pieces that no longer felt random. That night, I lay awake again, beside her, watching the ceiling, thinking, if I had called her out right then, what would she have done? Apologized? Gaslight? Spun another version of the story just polished enough to make me hesitate? Maybe, but I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. I didn't want more words. I didn't want justifications. I wanted proof. And somewhere in my bones, I felt like it was coming. 3 days later, she left for a conference in Charlotte, 2 nights at a downtown hotel, supposedly with her firm's marketing team. Brianna had been vague about the agenda, but that was nothing new. She packed a bag I didn't see the contents of, left a travel-sized perfume on the dresser like a calling card, and kissed me quickly before heading out. "Don't forget to water the succulents," she said, grabbing her travel mug. "They're in the mood to die again." I nodded. "Safe travels." She waved, called out, "Love you," as the door closed behind her. I stood in the hallway for a long time after she left, staring at the spot where her bag had been. By that evening, I still hadn't heard from her. She usually texted a selfie from the hotel mirror or a picture of her room service tray. Not this time. Just silence. Maybe that was the biggest change. She wasn't pretending anymore. Not even a token check-in. Not even fake affection. The next morning, I was sipping coffee in the kitchen when I heard the mailbox slam shut. I wasn't expecting anything, but something told me to go look anyway. Just instinct. The kind of pull that lives somewhere behind the ribs. There it was. A thick manila envelope. No return address. No markings. I brought it inside, set it on the counter, and stared at it for a full minute. Then I slid my thumb under the flap and opened it. Inside was a stack of glossy color screensh *TS. The first one nearly knocked the air from my lungs. Brianna, exiting a hotel elevator, hand in hand with the man from the rooftop photo. The same man whose hand had been on her thigh. They weren't laughing for the camera. This wasn't posed. This was surveillance. Next *T, them in the hotel lobby. They stopped by a marble planter near the front desk, and he leaned in. She tilted her chin up. They kissed. Not a friendly peck. Not an awkward goodbye. The kind of kiss you save for someone who doesn't need to be hidden. Another image, outside a wine bar, 2 blocks from the hotel. They were seated at a small table, candlelight between them, both leaning in, heads close. Her expression was soft. Int * mate. Familiar in a way I hadn't seen directed at me in months. Then came the text messages. Whoever had compiled these didn't just snap photos. They had somehow pulled screensh *TS from her private communication. I didn't know how, didn't care. All I knew was the words in front of me didn't leave room for doubt. "I miss the way you look at me. Can't stop thinking about the hotel. You made me forget everything." He asked where I was. I said I fell asleep early. I hate lying. But I love being with you. Every line hit like a hammer. Every timestamp proved what I hadn't wanted to accept. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This wasn't a brief misstep or a misunderstanding. This was deliberate, long-term, carefully hidden. The envelope also contained a printout of a map, a red pin on the hotel's location, with handwritten notes marking the date and time. Whoever sent this had been thorough, professional, possibly hired, possibly someone who wanted me to know exactly what I was dealing with. I dropped the papers onto the kitchen table and backed away like they might burn me. I stood there in the middle of the room, eyes blurry, head spinning. I had suspected. I had doubted. But nothing prepares you for the moment doubt becomes fact. It's not relief. It's not rage. It's something colder. Finality. I looked around our kitchen, bright cabinets, framed photos of hikes and beach trips and birthdays. All of it suddenly felt like props on a stage, decorations from a life I wasn't really living anymore. Brianna had constructed a whole second world. A version of herself that didn't include me except as a cover story. And now I had the evidence in my hands, tangible proof that I wasn't crazy, wasn't paranoid. I had been betrayed. Not carelessly, not impulsively, but methodically. I sat down, one hand still gripping the edge of the table. My coffee had gone cold. I thought about the day we first met at a friend's rooftop party in Chicago. She wore a navy dress and red lipstick, and I remember thinking she looked like someone out of a painting. Confident, effortless. The type of person who walks through a room like she owns it. She had smiled at me that night the same way she was smiling in those screensh asterisk TS. That's what broke me. That smile. She hadn't just cheated. She had shared with someone else the same expressions, the same rituals, the same patterns that had once belonged to us. She hadn't just given him her time, she'd given him her affection in the exact language she had used to build our love story. It felt like plagiarism of my life. And yet I didn't cry. Not then. Not even later. Instead, something inside me went still. Like a switch had flipped. I gathered the photos and slid them back into the envelope, walked them to the garage and set them on my workbench. Then I stood there, looking at the dusty tools, the half-finished shelves I'd been meaning to install, the old oil can, the receipts taped to the wall. This was the space where I fixed things. Machines, engines, busted gadgets. But some things couldn't be fixed. Not with effort. Not with patience. Not with love. I didn't text her. Didn't call. I let her conference play out without interruption. When she came back, I'd be gone. By the time Brianna returned from Charlotte, I had already moved through the stages of grief, past denial and anger, into something colder, something surgical. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want drama. I wanted extraction. Quiet, complete, and irreversible. That night in the garage, with the envelope of truth on my workbench, I made a choice. Not to confront. Not to accuse. But to walk away with clarity, on my own terms, with every thread tied up. No loose ends. No explanations. No second chances. I started with the finances. We shared 3 bank accounts, all created in the early days of our marriage, back when trust was implicit and the future was a joined thing. I called the credit union first thing the next morning and initiated a split, moved my direct deposits to a new solo account, flagged the joint savings for legal freeze, and requested itemized statements for the last year. It wasn't out of paranoia anymore, it was due diligence. Necessary, factual, final. I also called Leo. He was more than just a friend. He was my attorney, someone I had known since college when we were both broke and splitting takeout. Over the years, he'd become my quiet safety net. We talked maybe once every few months, but I trusted him more than anyone. And he knew me well enough to skip the small talk. You good? He asked when I called. Getting there, I said. I need paperwork. Divorce? Yeah. Clean. Uncontested if I can help it. There was a short pause. You got proof. More than enough. Okay, he said. Send me the details. I'll get the ball rolling. And just like that, the gears turned. Next came the property. The house had been in my name from the beginning, my credit, my investment, my down payment. She had insisted on contributing to the decor, the renovations, the paint swatches, but legally it was mine. I checked the deed to confirm. Then I contacted the title office to ensure there were no shared claims. There weren't. By noon, I had initiated a change in beneficiary for every insurance policy and retirement account. I updated my emergency contacts. I updated passwords. I locked down every digital door she might have had a spare key to. Then I made a call I hadn't made in 2 years. Hey, I said when the line picked up. I think it's time. There was a pause. Then a smile in the voice on the other end. You sure? Yeah. Release the file. Use the full name. You want the full rollout? I want everyone to know who I am. His name was Jordan. He was the lead communications director for the company I'd quietly been building behind the scenes. While Brianna believed I was just a SK*-led mechanic who worked with contracts on the side, the truth was much more layered. 7 years ago, I started developing a new form of unmanned navigation systems for defense and aerospace applications. What began in a rented workspace with second-hand tools and too much coffee had grown into something substantial. The company, coded under the name ApexOX, had landed multiple contracts with private firms and government affiliates. I'd been the ghost architect. Silent. Anonymous. Intentional. Brianna didn't know. She'd never asked about the long weekends in San Diego or the tech conferences in Vegas. When she did, I gave vague answers and she accepted them without curiosity. I used to think that was a sign of trust. Now I saw it for what it was: disinterest. Or convenience. So I played the role. The blue-collar guy with calloused hands, oil under the nails, the one who could fix anything with duct tape and a socket wrench. She had no idea I wore a suit in D.C. 3 months ago to pitch an unmanned interceptor to the Department of Defense. That disguise had served its purpose. But I was done hiding. I signed off on the press release the next morning. My name, Matthew D. Callahan, would be listed as the lead developer, founder, and majority stakeholder of ApexOX. The company was going public within the week. The announcement would run across every major tech outlet, accompanied by a clean portrait, a quote about innovation and discretion, and just enough mystery to make people curious. Jordan texted me after it was submitted. "It's live. You're gonna be everywhere by Thursday." I stared at the message for a moment. Then I packed. Not dramatically. Not with chaos. I took what was mine: clothes, documents, tools, family photos. I left the shared items, the decorations she picked, the furniture she swore was just her aesthetic. I wanted no pieces of her in my next life. I found an extended stay rental just outside of town, modern, private, quiet. I paid the first month in advance under a new holding company I set up through Leo. No trail. No alerts. Then I wrote the letter. It was short. 3 paragraphs. Direct. "Brianna, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. The house is no longer yours. The joint accounts have been closed. The photos and text messages have been copied and sealed in the divorce packet. Legal filings are already in motion. You'll find them on the kitchen table along with instructions from Leo regarding your next steps. There will be no conversation. No explanation. The truth is already known. I ask for no apology, no rebuttal, no attempt at reconciliation. This is not a pause. It's an end. Good luck. You'll need it. Matt." I folded it, placed it on top of the envelope with the photos, and set both on the kitchen table. Then I walked out. The last thing I did before leaving was turn off the lights. Not for symbolism. Just because I had always been the one to do it. Even at the end, I still closed the door the right way. Brianna came home on a Wednesday, expecting the house to greet her like it always did: warm lighting, the scent of something simmering, maybe the low hum of the TV, and my boots by the door. Instead, she stepped into silence. No keys hanging by the wall. No charger coiled by the coffee table. The bedroom closet was half empty. My toolbox was gone from the garage. The nightstand on my side of the bed held nothing but a ring-shaped indent in the wood and the faintest trace of cologne. And on the kitchen table, where we used to eat Sunday brunch and argue over how to fold napkins, lay a folder. Inside was everything. Divorce documents already in motion. Photocopies of the surveillance images, her laughing on a hotel balcony, her kissing a man in the lobby, her text spelling out a separate life she never meant for me to see. And on top, a letter in my handwriting. Calm. Controlled. Final. She called my phone. Straight to voicemail. She texted. Green bubbles. No red receipts. She emailed. No reply. That afternoon, she reached out to Leo. He sent a brief, polite response confirming he represented me and directing her to her own legal counsel for further communication. She showed up at my old workplace the next morning only to find I had already submitted a resignation letter, effective immediately. No forwarding address. No explanation. The mechanic shop where I used to spend 12 hours a day pretending to be content was no longer part of my story. By Friday, the world knew who I was. It started with a press release: ApexOX, a stealth mode defense startup, announcing its public launch. The founder? Matthew D. Callahan. An engineer of rare discretion, the press described me, whose innovations in unmanned defense have quietly reshaped tactical automation. They posted my photo, clean-cut, black jacket, confident stance. The caption read, "The silent mind behind Apex." News outlets ran stories. Tech blogs dissected my patents. Financial pundits speculated on the IPO's value. LinkedIn requests poured in. Old colleagues messaged me with phrases like, "Knew you were always destined for this," and "Unreal, man, congrats." By Monday, CNBC had aired a segment titled "From Garage to Global, the Billionaire You've Never Heard of." Brianna's social world started to crumble. At first, the messages were congratulatory, friends tagging her in stories asking why she hadn't said anything, wondering if they could score invites to future events. But as the story evolved, the tone shifted. A few savvy acquaintances made the connection: the timing of the launch, the sudden silence from her end, the rumors that Matt Callahan had filed for divorce just days before being unveiled as a major tech figure. And then someone leaked the story. Maybe it was a paralegal. Maybe someone close to Brianna who had seen the documents. Either way, word got out that the marriage ended not with scandal, but with proof. That she had cheated. That she had walked out on the very man who turned out to be worth more than she'd ever imagined. Suddenly, people weren't calling to congratulate her. They were distancing themselves. Invites dried up. Group chats got quiet. Girls' nights stopped happening. Her name became a whispered cautionary tale at brunches and barbershops alike. She left him. Didn't even know who he really was? Threw away the bag for some rooftop fling? I didn't see any of it directly. But I didn't have to. Leo kept me informed. So did Jordan. So did the occasional forwarded message from a mutual friend who quietly took my side without ever saying it out loud. I wasn't gloating. This wasn't revenge. It was just gravity. Actions have consequences. And Brianna, who had once curated her image so carefully, brunch selfies, travel reels, inspirational captions about choosing joy, was now the protagonist of a different story. A story she didn't get to edit. She tried reaching out again. Not directly, but through mutual friends. A few vague messages. Tell him I didn't mean to hurt him, please let him know I'm sorry, I just want to talk, one last time. But the answer never changed. Silence. My publicist started fielding interview requests, people wanting to know more about the man who vanished from his own marriage and re-emerged as a leader in the tech defense world. I declined all of them. The mystery was part of the brand. But more than that, I just didn't want to talk about her. This wasn't about her anymore. It was about what came next. I moved into a home just outside Boulder, modern, quiet, surrounded by mountains. My team expanded. I brought in engineers I respected, people I knew had been overlooked by louder voices. I built something worth protecting. The divorce finalized without resistance. She didn't fight, didn't contest. Whether it was guilt or strategy, I didn't care. She walked away with less than half of what she thought she'd get. No spousal support, no claim to the company, no rights to the patents. She signed the papers. She disappeared from my life. And I moved forward. I wasn't looking for love. I wasn't even looking for closure. What I wanted was space, real space, to figure out who I was without the weight of her lies. Some nights, I'd sit out on the back deck with a glass of whiskey and look out over the pine trees, the stars peeking through the darkness. It was quiet in a way my old life never was. Not because it lacked noise, but because it lacked tension. There were no secrets under this roof. No half-truths. No smiling faces hiding something sharp behind the eyes. I didn't hate her. I didn't need to. She had lost something she never realized she had. And I had gained something I never thought I'd get back, myself. 9 months passed quietly. Brianna vanished from the radar, not just mine, but everyone's. Her number was disconnected. Her Instagram was wiped clean. Friends said she quit her job, moved out of her condo, stopped showing up to mutual events. Some speculated she left the state. Others said she went to stay with extended family in the Midwest. I didn't care where she went. I didn't follow. That part of my life was over. Then one day it arrived. A white envelope. No return address. Postmarked from a small town I didn't recognize. Inside, just a single sheet of lined paper. It was her handwriting. No greeting. No signature. Just a few quiet sentences. I know I lost something I'll never get back. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect this to be read. But I needed to say it, you were real. I wasn't. I'm sorry. That was it. No excuses. No flattery. No begging. I read it once. Then I folded it, walked out to the fire pit behind my house and burned it. The flame curled around the edges, turned ink to smoke. There was no scent, no flash, no moment of emotional collapse. Just ash drifting into the wind. When I went back inside, the air felt different. Lighter. It wasn't about healing. Healing implies something can be fixed. This wasn't that. This was about understanding the scar, tracing it with steady hands, and learning to live with it. Learning not to flinch when someone gets too close. I kept building. I gave talks at defense summits. Donated to STEM programs. Quietly funded scholarships under my mother's name. I went on a few dates. Nothing serious. Just slow steps into a world I hadn't trusted in a long time. One night, I found myself laughing. Really laughing. It caught me off guard. It felt foreign, like finding an old jacket and remembering who you were the last time you wore it. That's when I knew I hadn't just survived her betrayal. I'd outgrown it. Brianna became a chapter in my story, not the plot, not the ending. Just a lesson. And the life I'm living now? It's not revenge. It's peace.